is that some teams are already in trouble? Deep trouble. Because when half the grid hides this much on day one, it's never just preparation. It's something they don't want you to see. The first day of preseason testing should set the tone for the season. It's where we look for signs of who's quick, who's in trouble, and who's bluffing. But what we saw on January 26 didn't answer any questions. It just raised more. 7 teams brought cars to the track. Only 3 of them ran anything close to a full session. And the rest? They either kept the garage doors down, or kept their power units off completely. The official story from teams like Ferrari and Red Bull was vague system checks, scheduled rollout delays, no concerns. But you don't fly an entire team across Europe, ship a car to Barcelona, clear a test window, and then choose to sit out the first day unless something isn't working. And when 4 teams do that at the same time? It's not coincidence, it's damage control. Even those who did run weren't telling the whole story. Mercedes completed the most laps, 56, with Kimi Antonelli behind the wheel. But they weren't pushing. There were no quick sectors, no deployment tests, no signs of race mode calibration. Just laps. Data gathering, maybe, but more likely, hiding. And Red Bull? They only ran 36 laps. All with Isack Hadjar, a junior, not a title contender. Yet somehow, one of those laps ended up being clocked unofficially at 1 minute and 18.8 seconds. Which, in this context, is more than just quick. It's a signal. Because even when no one's talking, every car that goes out sends a message. And in a paddock where half the field was silent, the message was clear. Red Bull is already ahead, and they know it. What makes all of this feel even stranger is that the FIA said nothing? No performance notes, no commentary on energy deployment, no guidance on cooling or aero legality. They watched, but didn't speak. And when the regulator stays quiet, the strongest teams write the narrative for everyone else. So day one wasn't slow. It wasn't uneventful. It was carefully staged by the teams, by Formula One, and maybe even by the FIA. And what they didn't show us might be more important than anything they did. Mercedes, Haas, Audi, and Alpine all put cars on track. On paper, that makes them the active teams on day one. But if you looked closer, really looked, it didn't feel like confidence. It felt like survival. Mercedes ran the most laps, 56, all with Kimi Antonelli. He didn't make mistakes. The car looked stable, planted, consistent. But the pace? Completely neutralized. No push laps, no long-run pace, and absolutely no indication of where the car actually sits in performance terms. That might sound like strategy, and maybe it is. But when the team that's supposed to be challenging Red Bull is this conservative, you start to wonder, are they hiding something? Or is something not ready? Haas completed 42 laps, quietly. No issues, no stoppages, but also no highlights. In a test where bold innovation will define the front half of the season. Running clean is only half the job. And Haas, once again, looked like a team that was playing it safe in a year where safe might be slow. Audi raised more questions than answers. 27 laps and then, nothing. They packed up earlier than expected, with whispers of cooling concerns and engine mapping problems. No red flag, no crash, but a very short day for a factory team that needs every second on track to validate a completely new powertrain package. Alpine had the worst afternoon. A shutdown. One installation lap, then a suspected ERS issue. The car never returned. And with this year's complex hybrid systems, that's not just a hiccup, that's a warning. So yes, these teams technically ran. But the message wasn't strength. It was restraint, uncertainty, and in some cases, quiet panic. They showed up, but no one looked ready to fight. And on a day when every second counts, that silence was deafening. In Formula One, not showing up is never neutral. There's always a reason, and it's almost never the one they give. Ferrari didn't run a single lap. Their SF26 was in the garage, surrounded by mechanics, with bodywork on and systems powered. But the car never left. The official word? Final adjustments. But if a team that's been hyping its most aggressive concept in a decade can't complete a systems check on day one, that's not adjustment, that's a delay. McLaren was a no-show altogether. Their car wasn't seen on track, and the team offered no meaningful update. That's odd for a team that ended last season in top form, with a hungry lead driver and real upward momentum. So, why the silence? Was it intentional concealment? Or did their new powertrain integration throw up late issues that couldn't be resolved in time? Aston Martin, backed by one of the strongest budgets on the grid, also kept their car in the box. Insiders have hinted at temperature instability in their energy system, a problem that becomes even more dangerous under 2020's excess cooling restrictions. Whatever the cause, the result was the same: no data, no footage, and no signal to competitors. And then there's Williams. A team with nothing to lose, a new technical direction, and a desperate need to prove they're not just making up the numbers anymore. But even they didn't run. Which suggests one of two things. Either a critical systems delay, or a conscious decision to wait until others revealed their cards first. But in this era, waiting is dangerous. Every missed lap is a missed opportunity to test cooling strategies, energy recovery behavior, aero switching under load. These aren't just laps, they're learning windows. And with a 5-day schedule, one lost day isn't just 20% of testing. It could be 20% of competitiveness. In a season this complex, falling behind isn't something you fix in race 5. You either start ahead, or you spend the next 6 months catching up. There was one thing every team had in common on day one. Whether they ran 50 laps or none. No one heard from the FIA. No clarification. No public documentation. No tech briefings, no energy deployment rules being reinforced, no statements about cooling expectations or active aero validation. Nothing. That might not seem unusual to fans, after all, testing is always low profile. But this year is different. 2026 brings an entirely new power unit architecture. Nearly 50-50 energy deployment, a bigger electric component, less fuel, and stricter cooling margins. It's one of the most complicated technical shifts the sport has attempted in over a decade. And yet, on the first day of that era, the governing body said absolutely nothing. What that silence does, whether intentional or not, is create a vacuum. And in Formula One, a vacuum gets filled by the boldest team on the grid. Because when the referee doesn't blow the whistle, it's not long before someone plays outside the line. Red Bull, in particular, understands this dynamic better than anyone. Back in 2020, they exploited DAS until it was banned. Before that, Mercedes found gray areas in fuel flow monitoring. And now, with a brand new hybrid formula, the opportunity to shape the interpretation of those rules is wide open, especially if the FIA stays quiet. That's the real danger. Because when regulations are new, they're not just rules, they're negotiations in real time. If the FIA doesn't step in early and clearly define the limits, then the first team to operate in the gray zone sets the precedent. And everyone else is forced to follow, or complain. It's not about fairness. It's about momentum. And right now, the FIA's absence is allowing the sharpest teams to build it unchecked. It's tempting to look at a testing day and only count laps. Who ran more? Who broke down? Who didn't even show up? But day one wasn't just about reliability. It was about posture. How teams carried themselves under pressure. How much they were willing or able to reveal. Mercedes looked stable. They kept Antonelli in the car all day. No major errors, no smoke, no red flags. But it wasn't dominant. It wasn't aggressive. It was controlled, maybe too controlled. And that opens the question, are they ahead, or just playing it safe until they know where they really stand? Red Bull, as usual, shows efficiency. A short run. A single-timed lap, and from a rookie, no less. But that lap spoke volumes. A 1 minute and 18.8 seconds from Hadjar, under full deployment, with no obvious instability? That's not just performance. That's intent. They came to test one thing, whether the car is already faster than the rest even at 70%. Audi, for all their investment and new identity, struggled. 27 laps and then silence. Reports of turbo issues, possible cooling faults. For a manufacturer debut that was supposed to mark a new era, it looked rushed. They'll bounce back, they have the funding, but they've lost the early psychological edge they needed. Haas and Alpine sat in the middle. Haas did what they always do, run laps, stay out of headlines, and hope consistency makes up for innovation. It won't. Not this year. Alpine, meanwhile, triggered a red flag after a suspected ERS shutdown. And in this new hybrid format, that kind of issue isn't just electrical, it's foundational. So who walked away with an advantage? Not the teams who ran the most, but the ones who said the least and looked the calmest. Red Bull didn't dominate the session. They didn't need to. They let one lap do the talking, and now, everyone's listening. The first day of testing is supposed to be about hope. New cars. New ideas. New beginnings. But this one felt different. It didn't feel like a new season. It felt like the start of a controlled leak. Because what was missing on day one wasn't speed. It was transparency. No lap-by-lap data. No long-run performance comparisons. No FIA breakdowns. Just silence, crafted, intentional, and completely one-sided. And that's where the risk begins. Because when the rulebook resets, and no one enforces it, the fastest teams don't just gain time, they gain control. The rest of the grid is left chasing shadows. Trying to reverse engineer Red Bull's cooling layout. Guessing at Mercedes' true deployment strategy. Wondering whether Ferrari even has a working hybrid package ready. And all of it before a single Grand Prix has been run. The worst part? We might not see the real picture until it's already too late. Because by the time the FIA reacts, if they react at all, the leading teams will be 5 steps ahead, with race-ready solutions no one else can match in season. So what did we really learn from day one? That silence can be a strategy. And in 2026, it might be the fastest one on the grid. Because if this is what the teams are hiding now, before the lights go out in Bahrain, then we need to ask ourselves, what happens when the real secrets start to show?